The following production is part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network.
Boarders, and welcome to Board with Video Games, the gaming podcast that strives for the right balance of coverage for games you play on your table and on your television. You could think of us as the Asmodee and Acquisitions of Gaming podcast. We're a proud member of the PSVG podcast network and still to be part of the Dice Tower network as well. I am one of your hosts, Kyle, and joining me on this co-op adventure, the guy who is co-host on a podcast that is totally available for purchase, Asmodee. Just so you know. Just be aware, Asmodee. Josh, how are you doing this evening?
Great. Buy us, Asmodee. Buy us. We're for sale.
I was going to say no price too small, but that's not totally true. I
don't know. I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
So,
thanks for asking.
So I was going to say, this is actually our second podcast we've recorded tonight.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say that too. I was going to say, for the listener, we just recorded our monthly Board with Everything.
That's right.
Before this.
Yeah, so if you're a Patreon subscriber, you can look for that soon. You might have already even have it already. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. You probably do, yeah. So, but how was your weekend, Josh?
It was a pretty fun weekend. We took the kid out to our local... It's not a zoo. It's like a science center.
Okay.
It used to be called the New England Science Center. It's now called the Ecotarium. I just feel weird calling it like...
The Ecotarium?
It's a weird in-between. It's not a zoo. It's not quite a science center, but it used to be one.
Okay.
Now, he got a year pass for Christmas, so we went with a friend with a child of similar age and spent a few hours there and just kind of enjoyed our weekend.
That sounds very exciting.
How about you?
It was very low-key. The partner had to work most of the weekend, so I actually spent a lot of time playing games. It was very nice. So a lot of video game playing gotten. So, I also took the time to do some stuff around the house, but yeah, a lot of video games were played, so it was pretty great. But hey, you know what, Josh? We're going to do something unusual. We're just going to kind of jump into it. We're going to go. So thanks so much for joining us this week, everyone. If you have any feedback, questions, suggested topics, hit us up at BoardWithVG on Twitter, or check out all of the awesome stuff that is posted over on the Instagram, also BoardWithVG. We're a proud part of Play Some Video Games, and PSVG is on Patreon. We're absolutely thrilled with the support you've given us there thus far, and if you'd like to monetarily support what we do, you can find us there at patreon.com/PSVG. But the most important thing is just that you listen and maybe share our show with someone else who you think would enjoy it. We're also a member of the Dice Tower podcast network, so if you enjoy our conversations about board games and would like to dive deeper into that world, we encourage you to check out the Dice Tower podcast as well as all of the other members of the network. No matter what type of board games you enjoy, there's a podcast on the network that is right for you. Josh, it is a news week this week, so what is going on in the tabletop world?
So, one of our listeners, Joe, pointed out to me that Kyle's prediction kind of came true from our predictions episode, and that is a big board game acquisition. And I think this counts as a big acquisition. Now, people may not be familiar with the company that has been purchased. However, the games they put out are of very high quality. So, Asmodee has acquired Repos Productions, commonly called Repos Games. Repos is most popular, I would say, for Seven Wonders Duel, Cash and Guns, the Spiel des Jahres winner just won, as well as Time's Up and Concept, which is a pretty interesting game, among other games. They're typically family gaming audience, or as they are described in Asmodee's post, a core gamer company as well. But yeah, I think this is a pretty big announcement, especially... not just an announcement, a pretty big acquisition.
Yeah.
That Asmodee will now be overseeing reposts. I'm assuming they'll keep the name.
I would assume.
But maybe
just like
that could be an unfair assumption, though. They might rebrand it.
Yeah, they could. I mean, most other like Fantasy Flight kept theirs, Plaid Hat kept theirs, so I assume they'll maintain the same with them. But
yeah. So, what do you think? Was this what you were thinking? Was this bigger than you were thinking? Is this smaller than you were thinking?
This is about where I was thinking size-wise. This wasn't one of the studios I had in mind, but from a size perspective and quality of game perspective, this is about where I was at. It is interesting, though, because I try to think of another company, if you put like a big three together like we have in the video game space. Asmodee is just so much bigger than everyone else, because when you try to put those groups together, like, okay, you have Asmodee, and then who would you put with them? Okay, Stronghold, maybe. Renegade, maybe. Come on, I guess. Like, I don't even know who you could say like stacks up with Asmodee at this point, because I feel like there's definitely Asmodee, and then you have Renegade, Stronghold, and probably Stonemaier, maybe, like in that next group, and then a whole bunch of really small studios after that. Maybe Blue Orange would be bigger and things like that, but it's just so interesting how massive Asmodee has gotten at this point that I kind of feel like it's them and just everyone else. What do you feel about that? You are muted, sir.
Yeah, of course. And I was like chiming in too. I think it's tough with competition-wise, like for Asmodee, because I think you're right. I think they're just too big. So I'm kind of curious if that's going to become a problem,
right?
Monopoly-esque, not like how people are complaining about Disney kind of owning everything. I guess to me, to the same defense I give about the Disney thing, as long as quality product is coming out, I'm not too concerned,
right,
about how much Asmodee owns. The thing that really bums me out is when they decide to reduce staff or lay off people because they all fall under that same umbrella, which means they have more resources to cut.
Right.
And unfortunately, those resources at some point were like small companies that were running on their own, and now they're just a resource to Asmodee. So that's kind of a bummer. But I think, I don't know Repos' global distribution. Like, is Asmodee helping them, or are they just kind of acquiring them into their catalog? Because if they're helping Repos get to places they couldn't get before, I think that's awesome. I just don't know what, not being in, I don't know what Repos is getting out of it, besides probably a big payoff, which is good for them.
Yeah. And you got to imagine, though, right, that when you go into the Asmodee group, for better or for worse, like, how many customer service people do you need? How many community management people do you need? And hopefully nobody loses jobs when these things happen. But obviously, I have to imagine that you enter into an arrangement like this because it is financially beneficial for the company, which typically means there's got to be some cost savings that have to happen, right? So, and obviously, unlike video games where you hear news of huge layoffs and all of these other things, this is, a handful of people potentially who might lose positions because board game companies are just so much smaller. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens with them. They kind of have a pretty big market share now. It would be interesting to break down, games sold in a year, what percentage come from Asmodee, what percentage come from these other companies, because other companies who are well known or bigger, quote unquote, have, if you look at a company like Stonemaier, a couple games coming out a year, maybe.
Right.
Renegade has quite a few, but just when you think of Fantasy Flight and now Repost and Z-Man and everything that Asmodee puts out in a year, they definitely, it seems like they must have a pretty significant market share. I just wonder how significant that is.
Yeah.
So, but hey, another prediction right. I'm cool with it.
Nice, good job. Let's move on to we got some more information on the Heroes of Marvel Unite. Or actually, it's just called Marvel United. I'm reading the press release from Kaman or Zeman, if you're nasty. And if it's okay with you, I'm just going to read the first paragraph or two.
Sounds great. Do it
on what they put out there. So from CMON's website under Heroes of Marvel Unite. It says, in Marvel United, you and your friends take on the roles of Earth's mightiest heroes. Your goal is to work together to defeat the most dangerous supervillains in the universe, protect the innocent, and save the world. Every time you play, you'll create a unique story set in the Marvel Universe. This 2 to 4 player co-op game is about to debut on Kickstarter. And in this article, they're giving us a sneak peek, essentially, of gameplay. I'm just going to give you the very beginning of it, which is, first, each player will choose a hero. Will you be the irrepressible Iron Man, the cosmic Captain Marvel, or what about the amazing name redacted? They put amazing, so I'm going to guess Spider-Man, but who knows?
I would assume so.
So it says name redacted to be revealed during the Kickstarter campaign. Each hero has their own unique deck of cards, packed with special abilities and different action combinations. Then you're going to randomly choose 6 locations to create the play space. Each location, such as Central Park, Avengers Tower, and the S.H.I.E.L.D. Helicarrier, bring totally different features to the game. You're also going to pick the villain you face off against. Sounds a little bit like Legendary.
Yeah.
Perhaps it'll be Ultron with his army of drones, or the fanatical Red Skull, or even worse, the name redacted to be revealed during the Kickstarter campaign.
The name redacted, the most horrible villain of them all.
Each villain arrives to the fight with their own master plan deck. That sounds very much like Legendary.
Yeah.
Chock full of attacks and clever schemes. Master plan, and sporting unique threats that heroes must overcome in order to free the different locations. So, that's all I'm going to go into. They give you a little bit more info if you want to read up on it. You can check out CMON's website. I'm a little worried that it does sound like a knockoff of Legendary. Hopefully it's not, and it just sounds like it right now.
Right.
But I mean, if they can capitalize on the Legendary play system, I guess why not? Because I think Legendary's, I wanted to say it petered out a little bit, but they just have Asgard expansion come out for that, so it has, at least the expansions haven't petered out. So what do you think? Does this interest you more, less? Has it not moved the bar at all?
I can't decide. I'm interested in seeing exactly what this is. It almost seems like maybe closer to Smash Up as far as the locations go, because you're moving from location to location rather than them just kind of progressing through like happens in Legendary, but maybe that's just from reading. So it kind of like seems maybe that it's a combination of the two games, bringing them together into kind of one style of game. But I am very interested in this. I want to know how much is in the box, basically. What are you starting out with? I feel odd about how they're rolling this information out, and I don't know why. We're getting these little teases, kind of like a announcement of an announcement, right? Here's some more information here about there's a Kickstarter coming soon, which we don't know the date yet, right?
No, we don't know the date yet.
Just that it's soon. So I just think it's interesting. I will be curious to how much comes in the box, what the price of this is going to be, and what the gameplay really truly turns out to be like. Is it kind of a combination of things we already know? Is it something totally new? But right now it sounds like kind of taking some concepts we've seen before, putting them together to make a new game, but I wonder how new or different feeling it will be. All
right, I want to guess from you, base game price on Kickstarter. What do you think it's going to go for?
They've said there's going to be miniatures, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go base game $120.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think base game's $60, and I bet there's 9 expansions of
9?
Yeah, of groups of kind of like what they did with Rising Sun.
I guess that would work.
So it'll be like X-Men. You get Magneto and 2 X-Men heroes, and then there'll be like the Brotherhood, and you get like Juggernaut, and then you get like 2, like you know what I mean.
Yep. No, that makes sense. I was anticipating
9 might be high, but I think it's going to be a bunch of expansions.
No, that's totally cool. I think we're just thinking they're going to go different ways. I feel like they're going to have a more robust base game experience because I think they're hopeful that having the Marvel license will allow them to get more interest if you would. And then I think there's still going to be expansions. I just think the base games would be a little bit beefier maybe. And then there's only maybe 2 expansions or something like that are available.
I think that would be better, but we'll see what happens.
We will, because
I'm going to guess
it could go either way.
Is $240.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'm not happy with that, but I'm going to guess that's what it is.
All right.
Okay, next story. We have a little thing coming up soon. It's called Board Game Expo, and it's kind of like Tabletop Day, but it seems to be maybe bigger than Tabletop Day, which is interesting. We're going to talk about one specific game here, but their company is releasing, I'm going to call them like small box games, a few months early on this Board Game Expo day, which is April 4th. Now, Board Game Expo is not actually an expo. In fact, it is an event that board game companies are asking friendly local game stores to participate in. So they'll get like essentially Tabletop Day kits for Board Game Expo.
Right.
And they'll have early release games, a very small amount of these games to sell on that day to kind of create buzz for these games that will be releasing in the future. So, one of these games is named Sonora. It is by the rebranded Pandasaurus Games in logo only. I think the games company has stayed the same. And Sonora, as they describe, is a flick and write game, which looks, I think, pretty cool. It's a dexterity game with a roll and write aspect where you're flicking wooden discs onto a game board. What am I saying? Game board. There we go. Representative of the different vibrant landscapes. This is from PandasaurusGames.com. Across the Sonoran Sands, each area encompasses a different unique game. So skillful aim is required to play in the region of the player's choosing. You can bump each other's discs, so it's like shuffleboard almost a little bit. It has pretty cool art. It's like little desert-themed animals like fox and lizard. I think that's a jackrabbit and an owl. I can't tell if there's holes on the board or if it's just the atmosphere on the landscape. But it's like it's a quadrant octagon.
Yeah.
Right? An octagon with 4 quadrants in it, which are different landscapes that you're flicking your discs onto. Not necessarily sure how that the pieces, like where you need to flick what to. Plays 1 to 4 players, which is nice. 30 to 45 minutes. It's age 10 plus, and once again, you can get it on April 4th on BGX Day. Are you interested in this? What's your thoughts on? I know we talked about like the roll and writes and what's going to happen with them. So what do you think about this game?
I think it's really interesting. It's definitely a different take on the concept. The thing I wonder about when I look at this immediately, and the thing that I always struggle with when it comes to dexterity games and games that involve flicking in any way, is the size of the boards and your ability to kind of do stuff on those spaces. Some of them do it really well by not having a board at all, that you just put things on your tabletop and you can kind of pick how far apart things are. But when I look at this, it seems like it's pretty small.
Yeah, it does.
And that's the only thing that kind of worries me about how effective or easy it's going to be able to flick these discs and move them around. And granted, I haven't played it. Who knows? It could be super easy to do. But in glance, that's my only main concern about it. I will admit, though, this was not a variation on roll and write that I was anticipating.
No.
I did not anticipate a flick and write. But I think it looks kind of cool. And I love the graphic design. I think the artwork is very, very cool. I really like the look of this game.
I agree with you. Especially the right portion of it. Looks like there's like mini games on the right pad. So that could be interesting.
Yeah.
It's like a game with Tetris pieces on it. And it's just very interesting. So yeah, I'm curious how it will play through. It's going to retail for $29.95 for people who are curious. Next story. Well, I don't know if this is a surprise to people or not, but Star Wars Destiny is officially coming to an end.
It is.
I think that's sad news. But
it is sad.
I don't know. It launched in 2016. It uses that dual dice system that I definitely have talked about in the past.
Mm-hmm.
They are still running the last Star Wars Destiny World Champions on May 1st to 3rd. That's essentially like the last calling card for Star Wars Destiny. However, I will say this. If this is a game you're interested in, keep your eye on Amazon. They're selling like the blister pack boxes for dirt cheap, and you can still play this game. It's really just signifying no more expansions, no more tournament play.
Right.
Which is fine, in my opinion. It's still a fully playable game. It's not tied to an app, so you're not losing any functionality. So this is one of those games, kind of like how I want to maybe scoop up Ashes, because Ashes is done.
Right.
Or even like the Star Wars LCG. Like sometimes you find those things cheap because they're just done.
Right.
So if you were still interested in Star Wars Destiny, I would say this might be great news for you because you might be able to get into it at a low investment. Does this surprise you? Do you have any interest in playing this at all? What are your thoughts on it coming to an end?
I am interested in it. I've always wanted to play it, though I have not at this point. And I think with, when you are in a set universe like Star Wars is, and you don't have the ability necessarily to create new lore, you have to kind of go based off of what is available to you. The end like this is almost inevitable, right? You're going to eventually get to a point where you're kind of maybe running out of things you can do, cards you can bring, characters you can do. Now, obviously, the Star Wars universe is very, very vast, but for a casual player, or if you're trying to attract some casual players, you still need to have recognizable things in your game, right? You can't go necessarily to the smallest gradient to find characters and things to bring. And I think maybe that this game has just had a good run and it's time to do something different. They obviously have Marvel Champions now, right? That's their new living card game, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So which I feel like a lot of design energy is now going to be switched from this over to that. Granted, how those games play is very different, but from a product standpoint, a development standpoint, you only have so many people. You only have so many people who can do so many things. And I think that right now, they're really trying to, I don't want to say milk, but to put a lot of work and push forward with that new card game they have. So it's sad because, like you said, it is coming to an end. But also, as you also said, you can still play this game. It's not like you can't play it anymore. It's not like if you have it, you have to get rid of it. And as you said, it's maybe the best time to get in because you can get everything you want at this point, right? That there's not going to be additional things down. You can get the things you want to feel like you have a complete set if that's a big deal for you. And it is pretty affordable right now to get in. And even Fantasy Flight is still selling stuff on their website until it's gone. So if you're interested, now might be a great time. Just note that you might not you won't be able to play in the World Championships in 2021. That's the only thing that you won't be able to do. That's
true. And they do have one more expansion coming out called Covert Missions, which they are still releasing. So you will be able to play that. It doesn't have a release date, but you can pre-order it on fantasyflightgames.com. Featuring Boba Fett on the cover, so I'm assuming we're looking at bounty hunters.
Yeah,
which would be cool.
And it's pretty affordable, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
okay, and our last story is one of our fabled board game video game crossovers.
That's right. We
have, according to ScreenRant.com, a new Dishonored has been announced, and it's a tabletop RPG. And it's by Modiphius Entertainment, who we have previously talked about.
Yeah, we have.
So I think that makes sense. And it's going to use what they call a interesting dice system. So we haven't seen a new Dishonored game in a little bit, so this could be a nice bridge between games, potentially. I'm sorry for saying so much. But basically, they're going to be working with Arcane Studios, co-creative director Harvey Smith, in order to make sure their take on Dishonored is grounded in what makes a world so engaging, or what makes the world so engaging. It's going to come with a 300-page book that includes an intro to the Empire of Isles, a guide for playing the protagonists, information about powers contained in the Void, a mini-campaign called The Oil Trail, and will spin 4 acts to introduce Dunwall, and finally a streamlined edition of their 2D20 game system. I don't know much about tabletop RPGs, so I'm not going to try to understand or explain a 2D20 game system. So you're welcome, and I'm sorry at the same time. Do you have any interest in a tabletop RPG? And if you didn't, does a Dishonored one make you more interested in a tabletop RPG?
Well, I've always wanted to play a tabletop RPG, and I just never have. The thing I find interesting about this is twofold. Number one, Dishonored, cool world. Not if you had asked me to pick what are 5 video games that might get a tabletop RPG this year, I don't know that Dishonored would have been one I would have picked. Actually, I can say probably with high certainty I would not have picked the Dishonored one. But Dunwall is cool, right? The world they have built in the Dishonored is very interesting. There's a lot of cool things going on there. It seems ripe for this now that it is put in front of me and a publisher has told me a thing that I want without me knowing about it. It makes sense. I get it. The other reason I put this story on here and I want to talk about it is, Josh, you may remember back when we did our beginning of the year predictions.
Yes.
I did say that there would be additional tabletop games with crossovers that we did not know about yet.
Yes.
Now, as a tabletop RPG, does that count? Do I get the points for that?
I mean, the tabletop is in there. It's in the description of what it is. So yeah, I would count it.
I'm just saying, I don't want to brag, but if you are a board game company and you need someone to help predict the future, to really help you plan about what's going to happen, I'm available. I'm just saying I'm available.
Okay.
I could be a forecaster, right? I could do that. I could go work for
this
one
isn't
of the
weather.
companies So, but what do you think? Do you think Dishonored's a good fit? Does this interest you at all? I know that you also, like I have not done a lot of tabletop RPG stuff, so interested in Dishonored.
Well, Dishonored's a blind spot for me. I haven't played any of the Dishonored games, so I can't say that it makes me more interested. Mm-hmm. But from what I've seen about the game and what I've heard, I mean, it seems to lend itself to RPG format. But yeah, like you, I wouldn't have guessed that even of the Bethesda properties that it would be the first game of theirs to make that crossover.
What would you have guessed?
I mean, they could have done anything else. I mean, Elder Scrolls was probably a pretty big one that they could have done.
Right.
I mean, Fallout has a board RPG game, but it's not a tabletop RPG. It's a board game RPG. Yep. So, miniatures-esque. So, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, not Doom.
Could you imagine Doom as a tabletop RPG?
I mean, you could do anything as DS for sure,
can,
but I wouldn't want to play it. No. But yeah, there's definitely stuff that Bethesda could have put out there. But yeah, I mean, cool, good for them. I hope it sells well. I don't know how the tabletop RPG landscape looks. Is there too much? Is there not enough? Like, I don't know if it's too many options. If people are clamoring, or do they just stick to like Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons and not Stray? So I'm not really sure.
Right.
If people are jumping onto other RPGs in the middle of current ones.
I have to imagine they must do okay, because I feel like we're getting new tabletop RPGs all the time.
Oh, for sure. We definitely are getting a bunch every year.
Yeah, so I feel like they must do okay, because otherwise I don't know that we'd see so many, but it does kind of, you do start to wonder at what point are you hitting critical mass? Like, who is the fan for the Dishonored tabletop RPG outside of people who just love Dishonored?
We hit critical mass last year with the Wendy's tabletop RPG.
I don't think I ever talked about this, but I had told my partner that Wendy's had made a tabletop RPG. I think she read almost the entire guide because it was so well written. They did a really good job with that thing.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Any other board game news you want to talk about before we transition?
I thought something had popped up and now I'm forgetting. So no more board game news.
Well, if you remember, we can jump back to it. So we'll move on to some of the news in the video game world. Josh, now I know you're sitting down, but you might need to hold on to your armrest or something. Because I'm going to tell you something.
I can stand up if you want, and then
no, it's okay.
Sit down.
Okay. No, you need to be sitting down. So however you want to get there. But this next thing I'm going to tell you might shock you so much. I just really want you to be prepared for it. Okay.
Sure.
Can you believe that it has been reported that people/companies are making video games for the next generation consoles?
Wait, you know what really shocks me is the percentage that they list. It's pretty low.
Yeah. So, as is done every year, the folks at GDC poll their members and ask them kind of what they're working on and the things that they're developing for and all of that good stuff, just to kind of get a picture of what game developers are currently doing, kind of where are they putting their efforts and their time. So according to the responses, they had over 4,000 folks who responded to their survey. And I'm reading a story from Games Radar, but if you go to GDC's site, you can actually download the full report for free. You do have to give them some information, though, in order to do that. But according to the responses, 23% of developers who took the survey believe their next game will launch on PS5. So that obviously could be people who are making games that are coming out 2 years from now. It obviously could be people who also are going to be making games that are cross-generational, that are going to be on both, but they're saying, hey, this game is at least for sure going to come out on PS5. While 11% are already actively developing for Sony's console. Okay, so of the 4,000 game developers who are talked to, 11% said they're currently actively developing games for PS5. For Xbox Series X, they had similar results. 17% expect their next game to be released on Xbox Series X, and 9% are already working on such project. So, Josh, we are... holiday this year, so November, which was 10 months from this point right now.
Yeah.
9% and 11%.
Yeah.
How do you think those launch lineups are going to look for games this year, Josh?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't believe the percentages or that we're looking at more of the cross-gen games like we had with the 360 and the Xbox One. I mean, we already know what the Xbox had, right? No console exclusive games for 2 years for Xbox Series X, right? If we are to believe that. But the PS5 numbers probably are the more surprising to me because we do know that PlayStation 5 will have exclusive games. Right. And, there's this kind of insane list that people are floating around on Twitter of the rumored PS5 games launch that are going to be announced. And it's pretty much... I'm not using fanboy in the negative way this time, but it's pretty much some fanboy sat down and was like, these are all the games that I think are going to be on PlayStation 5. So I'm just going to make a list and say they're all going to be rumored to be at. So Nathan Hunter, that Walmart Canada guy who's the worst PlayStation fanboy I have ever encountered on Twitter, put out this list. Rumored console games, and he listed every sequel to every popular PlayStation game. It basically would be like the PlayStation retirement party. They're like, hey, we're just going to release all of these games, and then we're just going to stop making games because we won't have any more games to make. Right. So it's funny that is going on, and we're getting this survey saying that so little people are making PS5 games. I really expected it to be like a 50% or higher. Like, hey, it might not be coming out this year, but we're definitely working on a PS5 game.
Right. And I think the big thing to keep in mind, too, is that the number one response to this survey every year is PC, right? Because even single person or very small indie studios who only do stuff on Steam, to people who work at Riot, who, make the biggest game in the world, whose game is also only on PC, are responding to these. So, if you're a console player, keep in mind that PC is where most people develop their games for. We actually are kind of the smaller grouping of video games that exist out there. One thing that I did think was interesting, though, is the story goes on to talk about cloud-based gaming. And the survey said that 6% of developers are currently working on projects for Stadia. And that increased to 8% when asked about if their next project will be there. So 6% for Stadia, 6% currently for Stadia, 8% in the future. And that number for Project xCloud was 3% currently and 6% for their next project. So it looks like cloud gaming maybe has some room for growth, we'll say, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah,
do those numbers surprise you?
No, I mean, cloud gaming is it's a baby right now. It's an infant.
Right.
So it's only going to grow and grow and grow. And I don't know that it's going to grow exponentially for a few years anyways.
Yeah, that's probably very true. So, but there you have it. Those are the numbers. Those are what people are currently working on. And next story, we're going to talk a little bit, not about PlayStation rumors, so there are kind of some PlayStation related rumors. I was going to bring up those PlayStation ones you were talking about, where basically there was someone who originally posted on 4chan that said, "Hey, here's all of the stuff."
Yeah.
Did you read the odd part about that though?
No.
Okay, so the odd part
maybe.
about that leak, right? So there was a leak that was on 4chan that talked about all the games that are going to be announced at the PlayStation reveal, and then that will be launching with the PlayStation 5. The thing that was odd about it is, and I don't even remember what the slogan was, but they said, like, here's what the slogan for the PlayStation 5 is going to be, like, you know, what they're going to use for their marketing. And then they went on to list all these things. Well, everyone just kind of dismissed it, but then like a week later, PlayStation Europe changed their Twitter bio to say that.
Really?
So either the person actually does know something.
Yeah.
Or they guessed really, really lucky.
Yeah.
Or PlayStation Europe is trolling them. It's like one of the three things, right? Because you know they know about it.
That's true. I mean, so PlayStation did tweet out a picture hinting at games that were going to be PS5 launch, and definitely you could definitely see certain games.
Yes,
because it was just like little emoji, like 8-bit icons. So I can definitely see like there's going to be games to be excited about if you can even decipher those things as to what we think they mean. But like that list was just too much.
Well, and realistically, most of those things are no brainers, right? They're making Horizon Zero Dawn 2.
Yeah, but
no
what we
kidding.
see it, we don't
Surprise.
know. Like,
right.
Yeah.
You know, MLB The Show. Wow, right? Because they just renewed their contract. Yes, obviously there's going to be an MLB The Show. You know, so anyway, that's neither here nor there. But one thing we are going to talk about, though, is that another rumor that was making the rounds comes from Osiris Black. This is a forum user who has had an okay reputation. They have done, and they revealed a lot about the PS4 Pro before the Pro was announced. So they have had some hits in the past. They've definitely had some misses as well. So obviously take all of this with a grain of salt, but it's rumor time. It's the fun time of year as we're getting close to these next gen consoles. But they came out and said that there's going to be a handful of games that Microsoft is going to have that they're going to present at E3, and that Microsoft's E3 presence in June is going to be quote unquote hard to beat. So the things that they talked about there was Killer Instinct, 28 weeks later, and a Superman game that might be exclusive to Xbox. Josh, when you hear those three things, obviously Killer Instinct would make sense, right? They own the IP. Having another Killer Instinct game would not be super surprising.
Right.
28 weeks later, okay, another zombie game. Cool. Zombie games are fun. But obviously the Superman game was kind of the big one that people latched onto. Is this the response to Spider-Man from the PlayStation side, that they're going DC and going to have Superman? Thoughts on this? What percentage chance do you think this is true? Where are you sitting about these rumors?
I really hope the Superman rumor isn't true. No, nobody wants that game.
Okay. That's not what I expected you to say.
Nobody wants a Superman game. You can't do a Superman game unless you dumb him down. You can't. It's just making a sandbox game where you can do whatever you want. Or we get Superman 64. Like right. I don't see in between. It's like Grand Theft Auto 5 with a Superman mod. I mean, I'm sure that someone can make a good Superman game. I'm sure of it. Mm-hmm. It's just not a game I ever would want. That being said, I know there's people out there who are Superman fans. I don't mean to demean your love for Superman. I love Superman as well. I just we've seen those games. We've been there. They're not exciting. And you know what? I hope to be proven wrong. As far as saying that Xbox is going to be hard to beat at E3, yeah, they're the only people there. So it's pretty hard to beat nobody.
But they're not really even there, right? They're next door in their theater.
Yeah, they're like
we don't
E3
know
adjacent.
that they're going to be on. Yeah, we don't know that they're going to be on the floor of E3. Yeah. And I know it's semantics, like they participate kind of in the week and all that good stuff. But I find it very interesting that they came out like, oh, we're going to be at. No, you're not. You're not going to be at E3. You're going to be next door. You're not going to be there. But
that's true. That's true. Killer Instinct, cool. I mean, they definitely need to do more with that series because it's kind of been stagnant for about a year.
Right.
I know they have a pretty big player base.
Right.
It doesn't include me anymore. Used to.
Because that was Iron. Is that Iron Galaxy who made that? Is that
Rare right? And
well,
Iron
no, the
Galaxy.
new ones.
The new one was still Rare.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought Iron Galaxy did the.
I'm trying to think of maybe they were part of it, but
okay. That's neither here nor there.
Well, that's good to know, right? Because I don't want to be wrong either, but I'm like 98% sure it was Rare. But watch me be wrong.
Well, I don't know for certain.
Yeah, Iron Galaxy and Rare.
Okay.
And Double Helix. Okay. So it was developed by Xbox Game Studios, Iron Galaxy, Rare, Double Helix.
Gotcha.
So we were both right.
Go team.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see them put more work into Killer Instinct. Specifically, like the character models, not as I don't know. It was a little rough for me, I think, as far as a fighting game fan. So hopefully they're going to put a big, solid effort into rebranding it.
Right.
Getting it into the competitive scene. In 28, it was weeks later, days later. Either way, I'm a big fan of the movies, and it would have to be a different style of zombie game, which would be cool because it's more of a narrative like story. It's more Day of the Dead than it is World War Z. So I would be interested in how they decide to adapt that into a zombie game.
Right.
So yeah, I'm excited to see what they have. I mean, those 3 leaks or rumors or whatever are probably the least things I'm excited about, but it's nice to get some information out there, I guess. Are you at all interested in a Superman game?
Not really. Okay. But I'm also not a huge comics person, so I think that there are probably people who'd be really excited about it, but this just doesn't do anything for me. Yeah. I'm actually much more interested in the other 2 things than I would be in a Superman game. So,
sure, me too.
But of course, that can't be it for the leaks and all that news. Osiris also teased what might be the return of the Order 1886, but potentially going multi-platform. Now, the important thing to know about this is that I don't believe, and I didn't look this up, but I don't believe they actually said the Order sequel in their post at all. I think everyone has drawn conjecture that this is what they were talking about. Okay. Because basically, it was alleged that he saw a trailer, or he or she, they saw a trailer, and they said the trailer shows a man with a shoulder-mounted light device surveying a dim room, then firing on and fleeing from a yellow-eyed, many-armed creature. The monster taunts him from behind the door, almost singing the words, "I have found you," before the game's title appears on the screen and the trailer ends. Okay. So from that, and knowing that Ready at Dawn has said they're working on a AAA game currently, people have said, oh, this sounds like a lot like the Order 1886 sequel. And according to Osiris, it would be multi-platform. So both PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Which would be a change since, I as far as I know, PlayStation owns the IP to the Order. So what do you think is more likely? That there is a sequel to the Order 1886 coming and it's PlayStation exclusive?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's more likely that PlayStation sold the IP and that to Ready at Dawn, and Ready at Dawn is making a multi-platform sequel to the game? What do you think is more likely?
I don't know if this is one of your choices, but I think it's more likely that if they saw gameplay of the Order, that it's PlayStation exclusive. I think if they saw something that hinted that it was cross-platform, it's less likely it was the Order in a different game that may resemble it. I don't think Sony gets rid of the Order because I think the only people who are clamoring for more Order are PlayStation fans because that's the only people who have played it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like if you're Sony and you're listening to the internet, you're hearing people want the Order sequel. So why not make one?
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, it's possible they might have sold the rights, but I don't see them. They're trying to get more studios. They're not trying to sell rights to games or get rid of AAA titles. It's not AAA. Would you consider it a AAA game?
The Order?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, probably from a cost standpoint. And,
Yeah.
The Order was a visual marvel. Like, that game still looks amazing today.
Yeah.
But it's so they can tweak and work on the gameplay a little bit. It could be better for sure. But yeah, I think I would definitely consider The Order a AAA game.
Okay. All right.
So, okay, here's my next question for you then. Okay, Order stuff aside, whatever. Who knows what's going to happen? I know I would love an Order sequel, but whatever. A curveball I'm going to throw you, Josh. That's not in the show notes, but here we go. Bluepoint, who we all know has been teasing their next project up and down with weird cryptic tweets on Twitter, and we know it's a PS5 exclusive. They have updated their website. Have you heard about this?
No.
Okay, so Bluepoint Games updated their website. Here's what their website now says. Quote, "Our latest project is the largest in our history and aims to define the visual benchmark for the next generation of gaming hardware."
Okay.
So knowing that,
yeah,
not that you need to name the game, because obviously Demon Souls is what everyone's talking about. Do
Right.
you think Bluepoint has the chops to do that? Are they the ones who are going to be able to create the visual benchmark for the next generation?
I mean, I guess it depends on what they think that they have, because maybe they think they have it, but it's not. Maybe they think ray tracing is all they have to add to a new game, and they're setting the benchmark for next-gen games. Maybe they know something about their game being the first next-gen game coming out, so it would literally be the benchmark for next-gen games not having to be good.
I mean, I guess that's one way to look at it, for sure.
I don't know. I mean, it sounds exciting, for sure. That's definitely a way to hype up your next game, but that's a pretty bold statement to make.
It is a bold statement. And I think it's bold, especially that it came, like, this just happened. So they have seen the Hellblade trailer.
Yeah, which is incredible.
Right, which is absolutely incredible. But also knowing that they're not Ninja Theory is not a big team either. So if Ninja Theory can produce something that looks that good, that maybe, Bluepoint has the chops to put something together that's pretty good. I will say Shadow of the Colossus remastered looked really good. So maybe it's a thing they can do. But
yeah,
there's the curveball. Okay, moving on. Josh, you love Control.
I do.
I love Control.
Yes.
And it looks like Gary Whitta, writer of Rogue One,
Great
wants
movie.
wants to be the writer for a Control movie, and it seems like Remedy is down for it as well. This exchange happened all on Twitter, where Gary Whitta was just kind of answering questions from fans, and someone asked him, what video game do you think would make the best movie, and would you write it? And he said Control, and yes, that he would want to write it. To which then there was a response from I think the director of communications from Remedy being like, yo, let's talk. So would you be down for a Gary Whitta written Control movie?
Here's the thing. Of course I would. But if they don't cast Courtney Hope, I don't want that movie.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah.
I can't see anyone else. Like, I don't want Scarlett Johansson in this movie. I know she thinks she can play any role, any race, any gender.
Hey, she's nominated for two Oscars.
Yeah, I would like, if we're doing a Control movie and it's going to take place like with a story that we know,
right?
I would like Courtney Hope to be the main character. Otherwise, it won't feel like Control to me.
Is that the story you want told?
They can tell a different story. That's up to the writers. Like, if they want to tell more stories about how everything came to be, that's
right.
Cool. Maybe she strolls in at the end of the movie, like sets up that sequel. That's fine with me too. I think the cool thing about Control is there's so many genres you can make a movie of that. It can be an action movie. It can be a horror movie. It can be a suspense. It can be a thriller. It can be a drama. Like, it can be sci-fi. It lends itself to all the genres. Depending on the story they want to tell. So that gives them a lot. It might get them too much room to write a movie, but
right.
It gives them a lot of options to how they want to get that movie out. So yeah, I would love to see a Control movie for sure.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I'm down for a Control movie. I would love to see it. I think there's so much cool that they can do. I don't necessarily know if I need a movie to be a retelling of the game we just played.
Sure.
But there's so much in that world they can do that I think would be really interesting. So I definitely would like to see it, and would definitely be interested in Gary Whitta's take on it as well. So speaking of, we talked just a little bit ago about Ninja Theory. Ninja Theory, fresh off of announcing Hellblade 2, has also now announced another game, or project, I guess, Project Mara. So, Josh, how many games is Ninja Theory going to make?
I don't know how big their studio is, but let's hope they're not doing what some other studios have done before and just kind of shift resources around to games willy-nilly to get them done.
Right.
I will not name any companies, but
yeah, I think once they got acquired by Microsoft, I think they staffed up to like 100 people, maybe a little over 100 people.
Yeah.
But I know before that they were quite a bit smaller.
So I know I don't know much about Project Mara. I didn't watch the video they released. Can you tell me anything about it? Do you know what it is?
Here's what I can tell you. And I don't know if you read the story that I linked, but it says, quote, Project Mara will be a real world and grounded representation of mental terror. Based on real lived experience, accounts, and in-depth research, our aim is to recreate the horrors of the mind as accurately and realistically as possible. Project Mara will be an experimental title and a showcase of what could become a new storytelling medium.
Interesting. So it sounds like they have a style between Hellblade and this.
Yeah, right?
I mean, that's cool. They also have Bleeding Edge, right? So they have 3 games that they're working on, technically.
Yeah.
But I thought, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought we were already supposed to see Bleeding Edge.
March.
It's March? Okay.
March is when Bleeding Edge comes out, yep.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, awesome. More. I love Ninja Theory as a company, as a studio, so yeah, as long as they're not, like, stretching themselves too thin, more games, please.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think the chances are that Mara ends up hanging out with Milo?
You lost me.
You don't remember Project Milo from when Connect was first?
No, I don't.
The little kid?
That.
Yeah,
Nope.
like, okay, so Milo, I'm pretty sure, was like the first demo they did of Connect on the 360, where he was like walking around and you could like hold stuff up to the Connect and then he'd like take it like in the game.
Oh,
and it
deep
like
cut.
never came out. It was never a thing, but like it was kind of their proof of concept, if you would, about Connect working. So I wonder if Milo and Mara will hang out. Okay, and final story we're going to talk about in the world of video games. Josh, according to Jason Schreier, Horizon Zero Dawn's coming to PC.
Awesome. Get this game into more people's hands. And in fact, I probably would buy this on PC to see how good I could get it to look.
So obviously there was some. Okay.
And mods, Kyle. Mods.
Mods, right.
I mean, mods.
I know. Okay, this might be a controversial take. I am someone who is obviously a big PlayStation fan. We all know that.
No.
That is my home, right? If you're someone who's also a PlayStation fan and you get frustrated about their exclusives coming to PC.
Like Death Stranding?
Like well, I mean, second party ones have happened definitely before.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
there's a whole litany of them. This is just going to be the future. It is what it is. There's really nothing to be upset about here. You're going to have more people who can experience a really great game that is, at the point it comes out on PC will be over 3 years old. So I think it's okay. I don't know that games that come out when PS5 launches, if we get a Horizon Zero Dawn 2, as a launch game, I don't think that's coming to PC day and date.
No way, no.
And you can play Horizon on your PC right now through PlayStation Now.
Oh, I was like, what?
Yeah, so you can already play it on PC if you really want to. It's a thing you could do. You wouldn't need to. You don't have to have a PS4 to have PlayStation Now, so it's a thing you could do.
That's true.
So do you think this though signals a change for PlayStation? Are we going to see a whole bunch of PlayStation first party games on PC now, or do you think this is going to be, hey, we're going to release this really well known game that a lot of people really liked, and if you want to play the sequel, you're going to need to get a PS5?
I think what's interesting is people don't seem to have a problem with Xbox games coming to PC, and I think it's because of Microsoft Windows, but they're not like it's not the same. It's still not, that makes it like not a console exclusive anymore, right? So why is people so mad that a PlayStation game comes to PC? Not even everyone runs Windows, so they're not even using a Microsoft like device. So I think it makes sense for PlayStation to make more money to come to PC. Like, it's an audience that has an active player base,
right,
that doesn't typically buy consoles.
Right.
So you're getting your games into more people's hands.
Right.
Stop listening to the complainy fanboys. Like, it's fine. I know like this is a big thing, right? Console gamers on Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, they all want to be the only ones playing the games on their consoles. They want to be in the in crowd. They want to be in that special group. I get that 100%. But as a studio, as a company, your goal should be to get the most appeal, get the game into the most players' hands, and you can keep your console war going, but get it to other people in a different way. And PC is the way to do that.
Right. So, question. Do you think this is, and I know we talked about this, well, not we, but the industry as a whole talked about this kind of before this current generation of consoles came out. Do you think this is the last generation of traditional consoles as we know it?
I mean, it certainly is looking like that, right? With digital cloud gaming coming up.
Right.
I think it's... Okay, if we have another 5 to 8 year console life, I think it's probably the last hurrah for... Because it might even be longer than that. I just don't know that technology, as far as HD gaming, is going to change that much in the next 5 years.
Right.
And the next step is 8K, 16K? Like, we at that point, we talk about this all the time. We don't live in a country that supports the amount of broadband you need to do that.
Well, just you think about us when we do our when we call each other to record this podcast,
right?
How we both have pretty solid internet, and so sometimes this has problems.
Right. So, like, unless something drastic changes with the country where everyone's getting 400 up and down for affordable price and it's not constantly interrupted and dropped, you're not going to be streaming 8K movies on Netflix. Especially in a part of the United States where you have data caps. It's not going to happen. So I don't see... I think ultimately, if there's another console change, it's going to be more PC style. So, like, people were rumoring, like, maybe the Xbox and PlayStation 5, you can take out the SSDs and upgrade them. Like, that's where we're looking at, is console modification, not necessarily new consoles. So...
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think that's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah. But the reason I say that is, PlayStation for a long time has been a quote unquote traditional company where, software is definitely where they make the most money. But for example, at the PlayStation 4, they never sold the PS4 at a loss, right? They were always making money on console sales. Well, if that's going to be changing, if we're going to be starting to pivot away from the traditional console market, if you're PlayStation, you got to think of different ways you're going to continue to generate revenue, right? You're not going to just be able to make it through selling your consoles anymore. Where Microsoft clearly has said, we're done. Like, we don't care anymore. We don't care how many consoles we sell. We want people to get Game Pass. That is what they're into. That is what they're pushing 100% now. Yeah, look at this sweet console. It's going to be super powerful. It's going to do all of these cool things. But really, we want to make sure that when you get it, you're going to get Game Pass too, right? So... yeah, I think this is inevitable for them. They have to figure out some way to diversify and to expand their audience, because I think PlayStation, they're not stupid. Like, they know that they're not going to be able to sell consoles like they have been forever, and that it's not going to be an overnight change that they can make to suddenly attract a new audience. So they're going to have to start thinking about how they can do things differently. And it's interesting because... Jim Ryan, who's now in charge of PlayStation Studios, and a lot of people were really nervous, including myself, about him taking over. And then Sean Layden leaving, and people talking about the power struggle there. And since, Sean Layden has left, there's been a lot of changes that have happened that seem like they're kind of positive, and so maybe I was wrong about Jim Ryan the whole time. And, he definitely said some really dumb things, but maybe he is far more business. But maybe he's far more business savvy than I gave him credit for.
Yeah.
So obviously we don't know yet. There's still some criticism to be there about how quiet they've been. They're not out front talking. We don't really have people or personalities we can tie to the PlayStation right now. But it seems like maybe they might be doing some things that might be surprising. So,
can you imagine if Xbox comes in $100 under the PlayStation 5 price? Because of how little they really care about their console sales.
I think they are definitely going to have, the multiple versions of the X or the next Xbox.
Yeah.
And I think one of them for sure is going to be $100 less than the PlayStation.
That'd be really big for them. Yeah.
So I think it's going to probably be far less powerful, but also because, like you said, they don't care. They
get 2 years, then not even have to worry about it because you won't even have games that will play on it.
Right, exactly.
For 2 years.
It's like, hey, we want you to get in an affordable thing, and we want you to make you feel like you're getting the next gen, but it's going to be as powerful as like the Xbox One X's or something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway. All right, so that's it for video game news and all that good stuff. Josh, we're going to go ahead and move on to topic of the show. There was a blog post on Gamasutra back in December from Sven Lubek, who is, just to be clear, he is a person who writes blogs for the community over at Gamasutra. So I'm not saying this is what Gamasutra thinks. But he talked about 6 leading game industry trends to watch in 2020. So I thought it'd be interesting to go through these trends, just talk about them for a minute or two and see what we think. If he's got it right, or if we think maybe he doesn't have it right. Because like I said at the beginning, Josh, clearly, at least in board games, I'm very good at telling the future.
Of course.
So, all right. So number one trend, he said, was greater shift to streaming games due to 5G and cloud computing.
Yeah, I mean, he's half right. Not everyone's going to have 5G. That's the problem.
Right.
That's the only problem with that. Otherwise, I agree. We kind of just talked about it, right?
Yeah.
No, we don't have 5G yet.
Yeah. And
I have just LTE, I believe.
Yeah, we are supposed to get 5G sometime this year, is what they have said. But we'll see. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. And only parts of our state are getting it. And only certain providers are going to have it. So we'll have to wait and see. But do you think, he talks here, a greater shift to streaming games. What percent of games at the end of the year do you think will be played streaming?
5%.
Okay, that was the number in my head too, was 5%.
Yeah, we're not in that place where, I imagine if 50% of games are streaming, how many angry gamers there would be. More angry gamers. Because
right.
You just don't have consistent connections. And as a former Stadia subscriber, I can tell you.
Did you not continue your
No, I can't
pro subscription? Did you? Okay.
It's not where it needs to be yet. Because there's so many differing experiences.
Right.
Until you have a consistent, everyone's experiencing it the same, you're not ready to have a large number of just streaming games.
Right. No, I agree. And I think there are some cool things being done. Project X Cloud seems very cool. I think that especially with the amount of games they have on there, again, Microsoft pushing services big time.
Yeah.
I think they probably have the best chance of success, I would say. But we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Google has all of the money in the world. I really feel for Google as whether they decide they want to do it or not. I think they put this thing out there just kind of seeing how it would go. And they've talked about the number of games coming to Stadia this year and all that good stuff. But for them, I really truly think it's, are we going to do it or are we not? And if they decide they really want to, I think they could crush it. But I don't know that they've fully decided that yet. So, yeah. All right. Number 2 trend, Apple Arcade's impact on mobile game development. Now, you might remember back in 2019, all of those years ago, back in September, Apple Arcade came out, and everyone talked about how amazing Apple Arcade was. I talked about how amazing Apple Arcade was. Josh, when was the last time you heard someone talk about Apple Arcade?
When you talked about it. I have Google Play Pass. It's the same thing as Apple Arcade. I have it, and my phone just turned on because I said its name, which I do hate that. I think that's important. I don't know how much of an impact it's having on game development as compared to what was already happening in mobile game development.
Right.
I don't think people are like, we got to make more games because Apple has a subscription service and we don't get extra money for these games. Like, I don't know that people are clamoring for that.
Do you think that Apple Arcade will have any impact on, or do you think it has had any impact on microtransactions, free-to-play games, anything like that? Or do you think, it's just a small niche right now that it will really ever be able to make a dent in those?
I think it does a little bit, just like Game Pass. Like, it definitely affects people. So people are playing, if they're using the service the way Apple intends, they're paying money monthly to play more games than they would normally that are premium games.
Right.
So essentially, you have like these groups of people who they can't, they play Candy Crush and the level ends and they can't not spend that extra dollar to keep playing. Like the compulsive gamers, so those are the people that they're preying on, I'm going to say. So it's definitely a market for it. And for sure, we can look at games like Clash of Clans where we see people are spending way too much money on mobile gaming. So there's definitely an impact. I just don't know what that is. I would love to see the numbers on how much they even just predict they impacted mobile gaming.
Right. I do find it interesting because, and granted, I'm just not super into the mobile game scene, so maybe this does happen. But I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, I really hope that game comes to Apple Arcade." Right. But I think for every game that has ever come out in the history of the world since Game Pass came out, all anyone says is, "I really hope this comes to Game Pass."
Yeah, that's true.
And so, and maybe, like I said, I'm just not active enough in mobile game circles to know that, but it's to the point where anytime a game, I see any comment about a game, I'm just like, okay, what is it going to be? Sometime within the first 3 comments, is going to be someone saying, "I hope this comes to Game Pass." So, all right. Number 3 trend: big franchises, small screens. Specifically, what Sven is talking about here is Call of Duty Mobile, which I have not played at all, but I hear is apparently fantastic. That Call of Duty Mobile is very, very good. You also have games, obviously, like Fortnite that are on mobile, and we've heard, I think Apex said they're working on a mobile version, I think is to be true. Josh, do you think that we can get some premium AAA games, or do you think we'll get more premium AAA games having high quality mobile spin-offs? Maybe you count Gears Pop as that. I don't know.
I know I don't count Gears Pop as that. Sorry, Coach Mo, if you're listening. I know you love Gears Pop. I gave it a shot. It was okay. This is something. So I played Call of Duty Mobile. I played PUBG Mobile. Played Fortnite Mobile. They're just not for me. I don't like the small screen experience. I would say, though, they are very well made. So, yeah, I mean, as long as they're able to put out quality games, the Call of Duty diehards, they're gonna play Call of Duty any way they can get it. So, sure, more of that is fine. It worries me about society and where people are going to be. But it makes sense, right? We get all these new phones that can do more and more and more with games and processing. You're just killing your battery faster, and and if you don't have unlimited data, causing your bill to be much higher. But yeah, I mean, cool. More games. I'm not going to argue with, I guess, is what I'll say.
What would it take for you? You said you tried all of these games and they just weren't for you. What do you think it would take to have a AAA game come to mobile and be for you? Is there something they can do, or is it just, nope, small screen, I'm not into it?
No, I mean, the only thing that can make it work for me is to make it less mobile, and that means I'm connecting my controller to it, and I don't feel like I'm playing a mobile game at that point.
Right.
Like, even when I got like my little like mounts for my game streaming and for Stadia, it's eliminating the mobile part.
Right.
Because you have to carry a controller with you now. So that's the only way I can enjoy those games is with a controller. Now, like tablet Call of Duty Mobile and a controller that I can bring to a hotel or on a plane or on a bus, cool. I'm all on board for that. But I'm not going to walk around my every day with a controller in my pocket.
Right. All right. Number 4, more handheld consoles come to market.
That's insane. You don't even need to read the rest of that. I'm sorry, Sven, but what a stupid statement.
Wow. Okay, I wasn't going to say that. But woo.
We're not. There's no way. We already hit the handheld consoles. We saw the peaks. We've seen it at the lowest. It would be really weird. We just talked about how important mobile gaming is. And
right.
So for someone to release a handheld console right now, it would be really weird.
Yeah. I think we have seen Microsoft's handheld console already.
Yes.
And it is streaming games to your phone.
Yes.
And I think very much that will be PlayStation's as well.
That would be smart to do that.
Yeah. And granted, Sven obviously uses a Switch. The Switch is selling very, very well and doing great for Nintendo. I would say there is a less than 3% chance that PlayStation or Microsoft, for Microsoft, I'd say less than 1% chance that they're going to release a handheld console. So, yeah, I would love for a new Vita. We all know I love my Vita. I still play my Vita. I would love a new one, but this is the one where I just not in line with you, Sven. Sorry, man. All right. Number 5, greater focus on inclusivity in games. Now, Josh.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people on the internet who are going to say we don't need that darn inclusivity in our games. Do you think things are getting better? And B, do you think this is a trend that's going to continue?
Yeah, I mean, things are getting better-ish. The problem is, as things get better, so some people get louder in the opposite direction, which I still hate. I think when we get Cyberpunk, we're going to see an interesting reaction because I think you can create a gender fluid character, I believe.
Yeah, you don't pick gender. You just assign them traits, basically.
Yeah, so I think we'll start to see a little bit more vocal Gamergate people, unfortunately. However, the important thing is that people are making strides to become more inclusive and ignoring those people. Because eventually they won't have a voice in that aspect. So keep pushing, don't slow down because you're facing diversity, which we have always been. And I say that not having experienced diversity in my life, but knowing people who have. It's important because it represents the gamers.
Right.
There's more people playing games now than ever in a more diverse category of people, and that's our country is more diverse. So we have to. Gaming has to become more inclusive to succeed.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's really what it comes down to is no one is saying you can't have your, bro shooter, whatever thing you want, but that also there probably should be things for all sorts of people to play in games, just like there is a plethora of varieties of types of games. The way games look and the people represented in games should also be a plethora of people. So, I think it's a good thing. We should continue to do that. I don't know. I always, if given the option, I always pick the female character in games. It's just the thing that I always do.
Yeah.
So I hope they continue to let me play as kind of whoever I want to as we go forward. So
not in the Tarkov game, you can't.
Yeah. Okay. I'm kind of glad you brought that up. So here's my question for you. And this has been kind of making the rounds in some places. And I think it is not as simple of a, it's not as simple draw a line from A to B.
Right.
But people are saying that there is some hypocrisy behind criticizing the developer of the Escape from Tarkov.
Yeah.
We're saying we can't put women in our game. It's too much work. Then going around and saying, oh, but it's bad for game makers to crunch. So how can you tell them it is not okay to not have women in your game? And when they say, well, the reason we don't is because it's a lot of work and we don't have the time, but also be against crunch. Like, how can you? It's that there are people who are saying it's impossible to have both those views.
So I'm okay with them saying that. It's what they also said is what I have the problem with.
Yeah, I have more of the problems with the other things.
So saying that women aren't fit for war and women are weak, that's the problem I have with Tarkov.
Right. I agree.
If you develop a game where you're a small studio and you have to pick between character models of male or female, and you have to pick one, I mean, then you do you, like, and that can be your explanation, and you can tell people that, and if people don't understand, well, too bad for them. But my thing with them talking about inclusivity is, if you're a company and you want to be smart, you don't say things like that. I don't care if you believe them. I don't, your beliefs don't impact mine. But studios, companies who have that mindset and are okay putting that out in the world, they're not going to be around anymore because they will not be able to be competitive because people will not buy their games.
Yeah. So
there will be still people who buy them, yes.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
To be competitive, there's no way.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Okay. Final thought from Sven. Number 6.
And he ends with a doozy.
Holographic gaming jumps off the screen. So basically if you're not familiar with this, I'll read a little bit from Sven's blog post here. It says, quote, recently Sony Interactive Entertainment filed a patent with the United States Patent and Trademark Office for a holographic display screen, which was published on September 3rd, 2019, and offers details regarding how the holographic display would work. The most interesting piece of this is that the holographic display would be compatible with PlayStation, and the patent also mentions Xbox and Nintendo Switch. The 3D holographic display would also be compatible with VR headsets, AR headsets, and smartphones. So literally, there is basically saying that kind of I think the easiest way to look at it is in the way that the 3DS works. This would be giving like holographic, like, so not just 3D, but like actual holographic gaming, like coming out of your television and interacting in your world with you.
Yeah.
Do you want this? Is this a thing you want?
I don't even know if the question is, do I want it? Because this is not happening. Not anytime soon. It's a funny idea to be put out there. No, I don't want this. If I'm going to just blatantly answer your question, no. I you know what? I love my PSVR now. I really do. That's where I think the buck stops for me at the moment. I don't need to imagine the price of holographic gaming, the unit and the size of the unit. Like if you look at this, the patent, it looks huge.
Yeah, it does.
So I don't really know. And if you've used a 3DS, you know how terrible the viewing angles are for holographic 3D displays. So I don't know that it's even remotely feasible right now.
Right. And to be clear, I know it's not the exact same thing, but that's the easiest way I can like conjure it in my mind about how it would work. Here's what I will say. Overall, Sven Lubek, you swung for the fences. So I appreciate that, right? Some of the things you're like, oh yeah, it makes sense, but you really swung for the fences. So and you did say these were going to happen. They're just trends to watch. So we'll see if when paying attention to these this year, they come to pass. But I thought that was just some interesting thoughts there. So with that, Josh, I know we have some questions / comments / feedback from the listeners. Why don't you take us through it?
Yeah, let's start with we got 2 like rough ones this week. I don't know how we're going to answer these. So let's start with dear friend of the show, William Herkovitz, at Herkovitz on Twitter. He says, give me your most controversial board game opinions. Thanks for that, by the way. I wanted to tweet that, but I didn't. Then, give me your guilty pleasure video games. I'm sure you have at least one. So I'm going to let you start. What is your most controversial board game opinion, Kyle?
I don't know that I have a super controversial board game opinion. Speaking generally, I don't know that. My opinion is that games are too expensive. I don't know that's super controversial.
I don't know.
Like that's kind of the thing that I beat the drum for the most is that board games have gotten the price of them has kind of gotten outrageous. I don't know that I have a super controversial opinion that I can think of outside of that.
I have 2.
Okay, well, while you share yours, maybe I'll think of something better.
Sentinels of the Multiverse is a bad game because it has bad art.
I kind of wonder if that would be one of yours.
That is one of my most controversial board game opinions.
Yeah.
My second controversial board game opinion is about is people who belittle and talk down to players who enjoy Monopoly are I wanted to say fascist, but that's not right. Are probably playing worse games than Monopoly.
Okay, worse games than Monopoly.
And
okay.
They may not have even ever played Monopoly.
Okay. Here, oh man.
You don't have to give one if you don't have one.
This is a thing I do believe to be true, but it also might talk about me as a gamer when it comes to board games.
Okay.
I think there are very, very, very few great board games.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of good board games, but I think there are very, very few great board games.
That's not a bad take.
So,
I mean, we know someone who puts a list of 50 for 4 times a year, so he might disagree with you.
Well, but he just says they're the best games right now. That doesn't mean that they're great. They're just
That's
the
true.
best. So,
That's
okay,
true.
guilty pleasure video game then, sir.
You know, that's a tough one. I don't feel guilty really about playing any video games that I play. So I think if I had to pick like I play Candy Crush Saga on my phone a lot. I think that's probably the game that I'm more embarrassed of someone walking behind me and watching me play. So I guess I would pick like Candy Crush is probably my guilty pleasure video game.
So
it's a mobile game.
That's true. I have I really enjoy Japanese games. And I think if you don't have a understanding or appreciation for how Japanese games are made and the culture around Japanese games, it can be very awkward for me to explain what is happening in those games sometimes. Just like, I talked last week about playing Catherine. When the partner walks in and I'm trying to explain what's going on the screen in Catherine, that can be kind of embarrassing. And it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure. So I think just Lollipop Chainsaw, like kind of all of those things. I really enjoy those games and the joy that they bring me. But if I had to pick like the game style of game that I really enjoyed the most, because, Japanese games cover so many things. I love twin stick shooters. And I just don't think they get the respect anymore that they used to. And I just adore playing them. And I think that, it's just a high score chase. Do the best you can. Do better than you can. They usually don't have the best graphics. They don't have any story. It's pure mechanics. But I love them. I absolutely adore twin stick shooters. So that's probably my guilty pleasure video game for sure.
Nice. Okay, thanks for that, William. There you go. Let's hope we don't get strung up for our opinions.
Yeah.
Splig at Doublicious jumps in with another one. 5 years in the future, what kind of board games are they going to make about any tagged at real Donald Trump? So thanks for that. Twilight Struggle, Dems versus Republicans, which Twilight Struggle kind of already is. Ish. Underground Railroad with immigrant, quote, safe havens. And then Balderdash with actual quotes from Donald Trump. Secret Hitler. So some hot takes coming in there from Splig.
He was very proud of the Balderdash one.
Yes, he was. I mean, I was gifted. I don't know if I think I still have it. A board game, a card game called No Trumps. For Christmas last year, 2 years ago now. And it's a game that the whole premise of the game. And when you answer, I'll see if I can find it and I'll read you some examples, is you pull out a card and you read a quote and you have to guess if it was a Trump quote or not. And like half the time it's like Mussolini.
Oh, gosh.
And it's very intentionally biased, but crazy also. So, yeah, I think we could see more games like that. I don't want to see any more games about it. I mean, I don't know, Splig. Your guesses are great. I'll give you that. I'm not going to buy Trump Balderdash, though. Like, that's not going to be something I own.
So, man, I guess we're gonna get political on the show. What can you do?
Number one, because I'm going to look for that game, so I won't even hear it.
Oh, okay. Number one, I am going to say Splig. I am playing Shadow of War, which I'll talk about more next week. But I did a vendetta mission, and I avenged a orc who had taken your life. So just be aware of that. I did avenge someone who had taken your life. So I'll talk about that more next week. But Splig, I got your back. Okay. So here are the two games, and one of them is going to be really controversial for multiple reasons. But number one, the one game that I would say that they might do is, instead of saying a board game about kids say the darndest thing, it could be Trump says the darndest thing. And the reason that's controversial is because there is a kids say the darndest thing board game, but there's like Bill Cosby and stuff on the cover of the game. So came out a while ago. Number one. The second one then is they're going to rebrand a board game for Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And it's going to be Are You Smarter Than Trump? There you go. Those are the games that I think we will have in the future.
That game isn't in here, so it's probably in the box of games I don't want out anymore.
Gotcha. Well, hey, thanks for the question, Splig, I guess. As always, I mean, no, it was a good question. Maybe a more bored with everything question, but it was still a good question. So thank you, Splig. We do truly appreciate it. Yes. So, if you do have other questions or you want to ask us other things, maybe if you want to ask what Bernie Sanders games we would have in the future, feel free to reach out to us at boardwithvg on Twitter or boardwithvg@gmail.com. Josh, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up here, but we're obviously going to leave folks with a recommendation for a well-rounded life. This is something else that we're into, currently watched, or something else we're enjoying that we think is helping us live that balanced life. Josh, what is your recommendation? I think, you changed it.
I changed it 3 times.
Okay. I was going to say yours was going to be something to avoid, but hey, we're going with something good. So let's hear about it.
Yeah. So I'll save it for another day.
Okay.
So last Tuesday, a movie I had been waiting to come out finally came out on digital. I believe physical as well. So I rented it via Amazon on Tuesday night, and that is Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. I always have been. I basically grew up watching Kevin Smith films. So what I'll say about Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is it's kind of weird because basically Kevin Smith made a Kevin Smith fan service film. It's very bizarre because it's very tongue-in-cheek about him and everyone who's ever been in a movie he's done. They're pretty much all in it. The premise is, if you haven't seen Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, in that movie, Jay and Silent Bob find out Hollywood has used their rights to make a superhero film about them, and they try to shut down the movie. So their trip is about getting from New Jersey to Hollywood to stop the movie from ever being made. Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is essentially Kevin Smith poking fun at the reboot genre, and what happens is Saban Films, who actually produced this film, has got the rights to Jay and Silent Bob, and they're rebooting the Jay and Silent Bob film, and then Jay and Silent Bob find out about it, and then they have to travel from New Jersey to Hollywood to stop the movie from being made. At least that's their goal. So there's so many in-jokes. There's some amazingly funny cameos. It's kind of has a little bit of a sweet story to it as well. Just very funny, very Kevin Smith. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Interesting. Because I had not heard very positive things about this movie.
I mean, it probably doesn't get high critics scores for sure, because these movies aren't for critics. I mean, his last movie was Tusk, and that was panned, and his movie before that was Yoga Hosers, and critics hated that. So critics just don't get it. But if you like Kevin Smith, I mean, it's a stoner flick, right? If you like Super Troopers, it's very much in the same vein.
Okay.
It's just a silly, fun comedy.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. My recommendation is not so lighthearted. My recommendation is Killer Inside the Mind of Aaron Hernandez, which is on Netflix currently. I want to give one caveat. I don't know that I really enjoy the editing of this miniseries.
Okay.
It's 3 episodes. Each episode's a little over an hour. It feels very disjointed while I was watching it, because there's, anytime they do a documentary or a feature that looks at like a person, and they always try to kind of weave their what their growing up was like, and all. They try to do that, but it doesn't happen very well. And the show just starts. Like, it goes with you, I think, expecting you to have some knowledge about all of the stuff that happened in this situation and the story of Aaron Hernandez. And if you're not familiar, Aaron Hernandez, NFL player who was convicted of murder and then ended up taking his own life in prison. It's a really interesting look at his life and everything that happened with the trial. And I will say I learned a lot of things I didn't know because I am not someone who kept up really with the story. I'm imagining for you being where you are, it was probably pretty big news pretty regularly. But it was a lot of things I didn't know. And I don't think it is trying to make Aaron Hernandez a sympathetic figure. But I don't think it would be unreasonable if someone watched it and felt that's what they were trying to do.
He might be more innocent than the media has made him sound out to be. Not that he's not innocent, but...
I think that's a good way to put it. He's definitely not... Well, I shouldn't say definitely. It seems very clear that he's not innocent.
He was guilty of lots of things, but maybe not everything that people were putting on him.
But also, I think there... Again, I don't think they're trying to make it sympathetic, but you have maybe a better understanding of why things went the way they did.
Yes, yeah, for sure, I agree with that.
And I think that's the thing that it does more than anything, of that. Hey, he did some bad stuff, and people need to recognize that he did some things that were not okay. But he had a really complicated life. This was not he had everything going for him. How could he throw it all away? Which was often portrayed that way in the media, of like, how do you just throw your life away like this?
Right.
Like, he had a lot going on, so anyway, neither here nor there. I just think it's a really interesting thing to watch, and I think it's going to give you some good insight, especially if you were in the New England area, or especially if you're not super into football, so you weren't watching it all the time or knowing what was going on all the time. Again, not the best edited show I've ever seen, but overall I thought it was interesting and a compelling look at his life and the situation and everything that happened there. So that's Killer Inside the Mind of Aaron Hernandez. Have you watched this at all? Do you have any desire to watch it?
I wasn't going to watch it because I'm pretty sure I know everything that I need to know, but just I might watch it just in case there's some things that I'm not familiar with. Most of the guys at work have watched it already. So maybe if I find myself with some time, just out of curiosity, but I kind of agree with you. Like, one of my favorite podcasts is My Favorite Murder. And something like you were saying, like, there's bad people, but it's also important. It's important to know their history. Like, they always talk about the murderer and their backstory. And some people take that the wrong way. Like, you're glorifying a killer or you're trying to apologize for what he did. But it's important to know the difference between maybe someone who had a hard life and these might be reasons that push this person to do these things versus a cold-blooded killer.
Right.
Because it's also important to understand why people do things. So just because you're looking at Aaron Hernandez or anyone, whether they're molested or abused or whatever happened in their life, those are ways to identify future people who might do things like this. So it's also helpful to go over that. Well, like, basically, like, at-risk people.
Right. And I think especially, in a time when we are regularly talking about mental health, and mental health is such a big thing that we're talking about,
right?
As a nation, and it's, again, we've been so political this episode, but like,
I know, right?
As a gun issue is not a gun issue, whatever you want to talk about, everyone agrees that we need better mental health services in this country. And it's one of those things that helps you understand that why maybe that might be true. Why maybe we might should be doing more to help people process the traumas they've had in their lives. And not that it would necessarily 100% prevent all of these things from happening, but I bet it probably would prevent some,
Yeah. And there's no excuse for murder ever.
Right.
which I feel like some people think that when we say things like that, we're saying that without saying it. There's no excuse for murder. No matter
there's not.
How you were raised, no matter what your situation is, there's no excuse for that. But yes, people do need to get help sometimes, and it's been proven that can stop people from committing violent crimes. So we could definitely use more of that.
Right. Actions have consequences, and if you commit the action, there are consequences that are going to come as a result of that. But that doesn't mean that maybe we could have done something beforehand. So, all right, Josh, what do you say we wrap this show up?
Cool, let's do it. Thanks for joining us, everyone. In addition to finding us on Twitter and Instagram at BoardWith3G, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/BoardWith3G. So feel free to give us a 5-star rating over there. Also, if you want to communicate in the more long form, or you're just not feeling social media, please feel free to email us at boardwith3g@gmail.com. We also tag all our stuff with hashtag boardwith3g, so please use that hashtag as well on all social media so we can see what you're up to. Whatever podcast service you're listening to us on, we encourage you to give us a stellar rating. That is whether you're downloading us from the PSVG feed, the Dice Tower Network feed, or our very own standalone Board with Video Games feed. You can find me on Xbox Live and PlayStation Network at Why So Serious. That's SIRRIUS. Kyle, where can people find you?
So you can find me on all the usual places: Twitter, Instagram, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Board Game Geek, all at Psychocross, CYCOCROSS. As always, if you have suggestions for future topics, be sure to reach out to us on the social media, because we want to talk about what you want to hear about. And remember, everyone, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.